Welcome in, everybody, to another week of UFL Weekly. I am Kyler Krajewski, joined by Mr. Beautiful, Zach Cole. Zach, how are you doing, my man?
I'm doing okay. We were just talking pre-show a little bit. I got my full spring allergy kicking into effect. It's funny, it just kicked in today for our recording. Oh, my dog just choked on something there, but yeah, no, but I'm a little stuffed, but you know what? That's okay. We're here to talk about UFL football, and everything is good when we're talking UFL.
We're here to talk UFL, as we usually do. We're here to talk all things UFL weekly. If you are watching us on YouTube, you may notice a different visual format. Trying something new here. If you hate it, let us know. We can always revert back. I just wanted to try different platforms, all that fun stuff. But if you're watching us, you can find us on podcast platforms, wherever you find your podcasts. If you just wanted to listen to us. If you are tuning in podcast form, you can see our beautiful faces and see whatever this new format looks like. It's just our faces like usual, but just formatted slightly differently. But you can find us on YouTube. You can also find us primarily on X or Twitter at UFL_weekly, where I kind of repost and kind of share a bunch of the happenings throughout the week in the UFL world. And then I just kind of post on Instagram at UFL_weekly. Just new episodes, so kind of keeps you posted there. So feel free to follow us in those platforms if you are at all interested. Without further ado, we just had this past week, week 4. We are at the halfway point of the UFL season, and things look beautiful. Week 4 just took place, so what we're going to do here today is do a quick week 4 recap, get into a special, mid-season preview. We've got, we're going to kind of talk through where things stand, in our opinion, on the player awards, specifically MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, and Defensive Player of the Year. So we'll recap week 4, talk about those, and then give our week 5 picks. Just kind of give a quick brief preview at week 5, the upcoming week. So, Without further ado, what did week 4 look like? MVP of the week, as we introduced last week, kind of something new we're going to do here. We've got a kicker, because kickers in the UFL are just dominating.
This is a trend at this point, man.
It feels like it. So this week, our MVP is Ramiz Ahmed, who went a perfect 4 for 4 in a rainy game, including a 46-yard game winner that was just beautiful. Ramiz Ahmed, kicker for the Birmingham Stallions. I didn't introduce him too well, but he signed with the team on Tuesday and won the game for them on Saturday. Beautiful. With Chris Blewett on IR now, right? Is it Chris Blewett?
Yes, Chris Blewett, R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. Chris Blewett. Honorable mention for the week MVP, AJ McCarron, passing for 245 yards and 3 touchdowns. You almost got there and beat Ramiz.
Yeah, and we're kind of foreshadowing here a little bit with AJ McCarron being our honorary MVP of the week. But I think this MVP of the week is a special place for us because we can shout out these guys that aren't necessarily going to get the love at the end of the season. You know, we're never going to see a kicker hoisting the MVP award when it. You know what? I should say maybe. We're probably not going to see
if Jake Bates was knocking in 64-yarders every week and most of those were game winners, I think he might have a case.
He took the week off this week, in terms of being the dazzling kicker of the week. So, but, I mean, it's awesome to see Ahmed stepped in on a team that just needed a kicking replacement after Blewett was doing a great job, and he killed it. 4 for 4 was incredible in a rainy environment, which is not easy to kick well in as it is. So kudos to him. Well-deserved MVP of the week.
Including a game winner. I feel like the story of the UFL kickers are just like guys coming in pretty much out of nowhere and just being like, yeah, all right, I'll help you win this game, or I'll just be perfect for you. And sure enough, Ahmed stepped in again, and the trend just continues week after week.
There's something to be said. Kicking is not an easy thing to do, and to see in the UFL these guys have just killed it week in and week out. It's really, really special so far.
I can picture a trend here, not to harp on kickers too much here, but I can kind of sense a trend where, we saw it with Brandon Aubrey coming from the USFL into the NFL last year. maybe the spring football leagues are, I guess, the training grounds for these kickers to kind of be like, all right, yeah, let me switch over from soccer, switch over from a different sport. Let me jump into football, maybe not at the super NFL professional level, but on a professional level in the spring. And I think we're going to see a lot of this where these kickers just find spring football as the avenue into the NFL, because we've got some kicking studs here in spring football in the UFL this year.
Yeah, and I think we're really harping on the kickers too, but some of the special trend of it is like Ahmed had time with the Bears. He got waived for Eddie Pinheiro in 2020, and then he actually spent some time with the Packers, replacing Mason Crosby while he was injured for just a couple games. But I mean, there was never really a chance for him to shine. So it's kind of it puts them in a spotlight and in a position where they're not in these high leverage situations in the NFL if they've gotten a shot. So it kind of proves that, hey, we can do the difficult things when it comes to place kicking.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into the week 4 games and how these things kind of played out. We're not going to spend too much time here this week. We're going to spend quite a bit of time here on the player awards. So let's recap week 4. We started the week with the Memphis Showboats heading to St. Louis to face on the Battlehawks. And the Battlehawks came away with a commanding victory, defeating the Showboats 32-17. To me, the takeaway here was that Jacquor Pearson came right in off of IR and just was right back into his dominant self, with the stat line of 10 receptions, 70 yards, and a touchdown. And 32-point game now has St. Louis on a 3-game win streak, averaging 30 points per game in that stretch after they were held to just 16 week 1. Battlehawks are a force to be reckoned with right now and on a hot streak.
Yeah, absolutely. And that receiving core is proving to be pretty potent. I mean, you mentioned Jacquor Pearson in first week back, killed it. Hakeem Butler also had 8 catches in this game, and Shepard and Aitman both chipped in an extra 3. So that's kind of week in and week out what we're expecting. I mean, that's over 20 receptions just from those 4 guys right there, which is such a nice safety blanket for AJ McCarron and the Battlehawks offense. Saylor has also pitched in 103 yards rushing for the Battlehawks in this game. And on the other side, really not much to say in terms of offense. The Showboats struggled. Case Cookus was only 8 of 12, and Williams, their backup quarterback, got some play time in this one also. Only threw for 37 yards on under 50% completion. So just nothing really clicked for the Showboats in this game. Darius Victor, Darius, is that his first name?
Yep.
Darius Victor, I'm sorry, had a pretty solid outing in this one. He ended up with 50 yards and a touchdown, so a little bit of a light there. But other than that, I mean, I think we're seeing the Battlehawks are clearly the second best team in this league.
Yeah, very clearly number 2, and we'll just jump right into that game. Number 2 behind the Birmingham Stallions, who came away with, as we teased earlier, talking about Ahmed, with a game winner, close game against the DC Defenders. So we've got Defenders 18, Stallions 20. Stallions came away with a close one here in a rain delayed game, but still came away with a victory in the final. I think it was like 4 seconds. So it was a crazy one. The Stallions remain undefeated, and to me, the takeaway here is that this was a Matt Corral game. The Stallions are playing a funny game with their quarterbacks, and quite honestly, I love it. Head coach kind of came out and said, we've got 2 stars. He started the season saying, we've got 2 starters here on this offense, 2 starting quarterbacks, and he's treating them like such. The first 2 games, we kind of saw Matt Corral and Adrian Martinez kind of switch spots a little bit throughout the game. And I think the takeaway that he had from those games is that these guys want to play full games. I think I saw the quote that he didn't want a player, either one of them, to feel like they were getting pulled out after 3 incompletions. Just when he was just like, oh, let's get this other guy a shot. Where now he's just going to be like, nope, whoever's the starter is going to be the starter. At least that's what he said. He could come into week 5 and do something completely different. But either way, this was a Matt Corral game. Adrian Martinez threw zero passes, but rushed once for 3 yards. So he was out there and still active in the run game. But this was a Matt Corral game.
Yeah, it's funny. There's a saying kind of in football coaching where if you have more than one quarterback, you have zero quarterbacks, and Skip Holtz is kind of proving that to not be true because as we see here, week in and week out, he's almost game planning because he's got 2 guys that are capable of starting games for him, which is really kind of neat. I think on the other side, the flip side of this game, we saw a closer game, but I'm kind of chalking that up to the rain in this game.
Yeah.
I think it really kind of took the Stallions out of their game plan. It made it a sloppy defensive battle, which is what the defenders absolutely want to play in. They want a close game, a gritty game like that. So I think that's why we're seeing such a close score here. I think it would have been a little more lopsided had the weather not played such a factor. But hey, the better team here still ended up on top, and we see the Stallions improve to 4-0.
Insane that we have a perfect 4-0 squad here, but hey, that's why they are back-to-back USFL champions and absolutely gunning for the UFL champion this year.
For sure. Yep, for sure.
Final game that took place on Saturday, the Michigan Panthers took on the San Antonio Brahmas, and the Brahmas came away with the victory 19-9. It was the Panthers just couldn't get things going, and actually the Panthers scored a touchdown late in the fourth quarter to kind of bring it up to 9, and then they went for that alternate possession, that 4th and 12, to kind of go and try to be like, all right, no, we're still in this. We've got this. They converted it, were successful on the alternate possession, but they couldn't keep the drive going. I think there was like a big sack, and it just deflated the possession and ultimately had to turn the ball over. So they converted, but just couldn't complete the the comeback there. And a quick note on alternate possessions here, the 4th and 12 instead of the onside kicks. It is now a perfect 3 for 3 when attempted this season. 2 of those resulted in a comeback victory, and 1 of them did not here in the Panthers lost to the Brahmas. Still, they would have been down 10. I think they still would have had to score twice after a second score. But, man, 3 for 3 on alternate possessions this year from the UFL teams, and the Panthers almost had it. Almost had a victory there, or a comeback.
Yeah, I think much to the Panthers' dismay, I think this actually kind of was healthy for the alternate possession, was for them not to score on the ensuing drive after converting it. Yeah. I think if we do ever expect to see this at the NFL level, there needs to be a little more parity in the success rate versus the versus the unsuccessful attempts. And I think that for the Panthers, we saw here that they did not immediately score a touchdown, which is a good thing. This game was sort of the Panthers' MO. They're going to play a great defensive game, but we just have not seen that offense click into place yet. And for the Brahmas, a win's a win's a win. 19-9 isn't exactly the ideal outcome, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, Wade and the gang can kind of take a look at the scoreboard and say, hey, we're back in the win column. Let's keep this ball rolling.
A nasty win is still a win.
Yes, it is. Yep, absolutely.
Speaking of nasty wins, final game of the week. The Houston Roughnecks came away with a victory in the 0-3 showdown between them and the Renegades.
Someone had to win.
Someone had to win, and the Roughnecks came away with the win, 17-9 against the Renegades. First win of the season. To me, the big note here is that running back Mark Thompson scored in his return to the Roughnecks this season. First game, reigning USFL Offensive Player of the Year. Guy can ball out. I've seen him compared to be named the Derrick Henry of the UFL. And this is, I think he was on a pitch count is what I was seeing here. So it wasn't like a full unleashing of Mark Thompson. But, hey, he had a good, solid, really good-looking 10-yard rush for a touchdown. And I think he's going to be a huge factor for this Roughnecks team moving forward, hoping they can keep that winning streak flowing.
Yeah, it was nice to see that Mark Thompson came in and gave these guys a spark. Reed Sinnett also threw the ball pretty well. On the other side, the Renegades, Luis Perez continues to still do Luis Perez things. He's playing at least an average level, if not a little bit above average. And in some games he's been good, but they just can't get anything going on the ground. I mean, their leading rusher had 17 yards in this game, which is just not going to win you football games at all. So when you're really one-dimensional on the offensive side of the ball, it makes it super easy for the defense to stop. We kind of saw that Luis Perez was just a shade over 50% completion percentage, so they knew he was looking to throw the ball. They weren't looking to run the ball. It just kind of makes it hard to put points on the board and win games.
Yeah, so hopefully, big Luis Perez fan here, hoping he kind of gets this Renegades team flowing, hoping they can get a victory this coming week. Who do they play? The Brahmas. Tough matchup, but
that is a tough matchup.
But the 1-3 now Houston Roughnecks with their first win get to follow it up with a matchup against the 4-0 Birmingham Stallions. So rooting for your Roughnecks.
The sun does never shines too long.
It does not. One other quick note about all of these games, I guess two. All four home teams were victorious this week. Home teams this week were 4-0. And following this week, this is from grabbing this from the, I guess, week 4 by the numbers on the UFL site. 13 out of 16 games this entire season have been a one-score game in the fourth quarter. So they haven't ended with not all of them have ended with the one-score game, but in the fourth quarter, we've seen one-score games in 13 out of 16 games this season. And there has been a lead change in the final 5 seconds each week this season.
That's wild.
So we've got some close matchups between all of these squads in the UFL.
Yeah, and I think that's really healthy for the league as a whole because
oh my gosh,
we've seen a lot of matchups, interdivisional matchups, and I think that's showing that in some way, shape, or form, these two leagues are healthy to be combined with one another, and they are aligning pretty well.
I actually think the matchup between USFL and XFL right now, I think they're both at 4 wins against each other.
And that's perfect. That's all you can ask for.
It really is.
Right. coming into just one last point. Coming into week 2, I think we saw I think the USFL swept, correct?
Yeah, I think week 1 was a sweep for the USFL, and I think since then the XFL has been chipping at that lead.
Yeah, we saw Memphis, Michigan, and Birmingham all win, and DC and San Antonio played each other, so that was a wash.
Yeah.
Wow.
Current standings see the Battlehawks and the Brahmas tied for first in the XFL division at 3-1. USFL, we've got the Stallions just dominating that top of the leaderboard there, with the Panthers floating right behind them 2 games at 2-2.
Yeah, it's clear to see that the Battlehawks and the Brahmas are the 2 best teams on the XFL half, and on the opposite half, the USFL. I think the Stallions are head and shoulders above everyone else right now. I do think that we could see, if the Panthers get some offense to click, we could see them start kind of climbing up and separating themselves. I think the Showboats and the Roughnecks are worse than the Stallions and the Panthers. I think there's a division between those two. But I think on the XFL side, the Defenders could climb their way up into the upper tier 2, leaving the Renegades behind. So I think we're kind of starting to see the splits between the good teams and the bad teams right now. Absolutely.
All right, let's give out or discuss some player awards. Let's kick us off with Defensive Player of the Year. We'll go defensive, offensive, then we'll round us out here on MVP. I've got, Zach, let's split them up. I've got one guy here. You could take the other.
Okay.
One guy I'd like to mention here, safety for the Panthers, the Michigan Panthers, Kai Nakua, friendly brother of Puka Nakua, rookie sensation for the Los Angeles Rams. We've got Kai Nakua, currently leads the league in interceptions with 2. He's the only player in the league with 2 interceptions. He had one this past week. dude just, I think he also leads the league in passes deflected, but I could be wrong. I'm going to fact check that right now. But as far as I see, the guy's just balling out on defense back there in the secondary, putting up a really good defensive battle against these receivers against him, and just doing a really good job shutting guys down when needed.
Yeah, it's hard to really kind of separate defensive players this early in the season.
Yeah.
4 games in, I think 4 is enough of a margin where it could still be a little bit of a fluke. But, I mean, Nakua leading with 2 interceptions is definitely kind of separates him in the secondary portion of the defense. I'm going to go ahead and hop to the trenches here and go with the defensive tackle. Carlos Davis of the Birmingham Stallions. I mean, we've talked about the Stallions as being one of the best all-around teams. I think they have one of the best defensive units up there with the Panthers and the Defenders from the XFL division. But Carlos Davis is currently the sack leader in the UFL as well. He's got 6.5, and he has a forced fumble to his name. So clearly he's making an impact from the inside. And I mean, the Stallions also have other dudes around, and I think by him being such a monster, he's kind of making everyone else look even better, which is just bringing them together as a unit. So I think he's kind of the rock to the Stallions defense, which is why I think he definitely belongs in that conversation.
I would also like to mention safety for the Memphis Showboats. This is more of a wild card guy. Safety for the Showboats, Christian McFarland. He is the only defensive player with a touchdown. And oddly, he has 2, and one of them is a rushing touchdown on offense.
Is that cheating to win the DPOY if one of them is an offensive touchdown? Or are you just a versatile defensive player?
Technically, he would be a defensive player on the stat sheet. He just is doing offensive plays.
You're very right. Yep.
That was an interesting stat because it was so weird. Because I think, the Brahmas have an Anthony McFarland. So the whole time I'm seeing McFarland with the 2 touchdowns, and I'm like, there's no defensive touchdowns like aligning with this. And then I was just like, a rushing McFarland. That's Anthony McFarland. I just have that statted wrong. No, I think it was week 2. He had a rushing touchdown. So, yeah, Christian McFarland, safety for the Showboats.
That's a good name to throw in the conversation, definitely. I like I said, the other guys are going to pop up. I mean, we're
going to see so many guys just kind of show up here. I'm blanking. I'm looking at the list. Scooby Wright.
I was going to bring up Scoob.
Yep. He's a guy who is just all over the place defensively and is always mentioned in these top defensive players.
And I mean, the Defenders have had a couple standout players in the secondary. We mentioned his name's escaping me at the moment, but he had the chase down strip fumble a couple weeks ago to kind of turn that game around. Like there's just been kind of pop up plays from individuals all over. I think right now though the whole UFL is kind of playing as a unit defensively, if that makes sense. Each team is playing more as a unit, and we haven't really seen those guys separate themselves as much as we've seen with Kai Nakua and with Davis, the defensive tackle for the Stallions.
For now, so defensive players, yes. Stoked to see you kind of keep it up.
Absolutely. Hey, let's talk offense.
Let's talk offense. I'm going to throw my guy here, just up here in the top. We can talk everybody else a little bit after him. But I got to throw in wide receiver Jontre Kirkland for the Brahmas.
Absolutely, yeah.
He is currently the leader in receptions, currently, I think, second in receiving yards. I got to fact check myself. Yeah, second in receiving yards with 271. By far the leader in receptions with 28. He has 28, and then Cody Latimer, lining up right alongside him, has 21. And Kirkland is a guy that this Brahmas team is, I guess, playmaking or making plays for him to be a playmaker. He's got 2 pass attempts, one of them completed. But he's one of those guys that when they're inside the red zone, he's going to swing around, take the ball into the end zone himself, rushing. But he's just a playmaker. And to me, that I feel like is Offensive Player of the Year worthy. I love this man, Jontre Kirkland. This man is he's a stud.
Yeah, between Jontre and Jacour Pearson, I mean, those two are giving us everything we wanted from our XFL hangover. No, just talking about the OPOY, I think it's important to note that these are guys. The MVP is usually rewarded to a quarterback, someone that's awarding his team wins, so on and so forth. And I think the OPOY is more of a chance to shine for receivers or the running backs, guys that are just standing out as offensive weapons, but aren't maybe necessarily as essential as a quarterback is. So we do have one or two quarterbacks in our short list here. I'm going to go ahead and cheat a little bit, and I'm going to name a whole unit as OPOY. I think they're almost stealing from each other, and it kind of stinks, but the whole Battlehawks, the whole Battlehawks wide receiver core is just so good. And we talked about it, maybe not last week, but the week prior, so go back and check that one out. But these guys just seem to be able to live in this world where it doesn't matter who goes off. They can each take a week off. One can go crazy. They can split it 5-5-5. Like, it doesn't seem to matter. And now just adding Ja'Cour Pearson into this is insane. I mean, it takes this unit up a notch. And really, I think that all four of them would be considered the offensive player of the year if that was such a thing. But I don't think at this point I can single a specific one of them out. At this point, I think going 10, 70, and 1 for Ja'Cour Pearson kind of puts him in a good spot, though.
Yeah, the Battlehawks receivers are one of those groups that you can sort the receiving stats into any section: receptions, yards, touchdowns, and you're gonna see two of these guys, 2 out of 4, maybe even 3. And now that Ja'Cour Pearson's back, we're gonna probably see 3 or 4 of them, kind of just probably even in the top 12 of receiving yards in the coming weeks. And it's bonkers to think that that's a reality here with these 4 guys, but it's beautiful to see. I'd also like to touch.
It would be nice if we could bend the rules and give it to 4 guys, but unfortunately, it's probably not going to happen, and they're going to pick votes away from each other.
Yep. Also, would like to mention both quarterbacks, EJ Perry, who, by the way, I saw is hurt, so we may be seeing a little bit less of him this week. But that just came out like an hour before recording, so more on that on Twitter or X if you follow us there. But EJ Perry is currently leading the league in rushing touchdowns, and Adrian Martinez of the Stallions is leading or second in the league in rushing yards, which would also like to mention Jacob Sailors of the Battlehawks, current leader of the league in rushing yards. Can't kind of leave the rushing guys out of this. So
yeah, Sailors
running back, and then Perry and Martinez quarterbacks here, just kind of all having multifaceted, advantages to themselves, kind of here in the offensive player of the year category.
Yeah, and again, apologies to all of our USFL fans for our XFL drawbacks all the time, but we haven't really seen a running back this year separate himself from the pack like Abram Smith has. I mean, Sailors is starting to do a pretty good job of it, but it was pretty obvious that Abram Smith was like the premier running back in the XFL last year.
Yeah, I think by this point last year, Abram Smith was floating in like the 300 yards, while everybody right now is 170. And I think we can kind of expect Mark Thompson to float himself up into the leaderboard here of Offensive Player of the Year for you USFL fans. So tossing you something here, sorry in advance, but. Mark Thompson, I think, in the coming weeks, if he just gets back into the role that he saw last year, could very easily jump this leaderboard.
Absolutely. Now let's talk about the lead dogs of the league. These guys are our favorite MVP candidates. I think we have 2 or 3 of them in here that are going to be some familiar names. But Kyle, go ahead, break one down for me.
Well, I'm just we'll save the clear favorite here for last. I think we already kind of touched on him because all right, we'll save him for last. But just to kind of toss in a few names here, I could honestly throw in both Stallions quarterbacks, Adrian Martinez and Matt Corral, primarily because this team is undefeated, and typically you see the best players from the best teams win this MVP award. So I think if one of these guys kind of strays away and becomes the full-time starter, or if they both just kind of dominate in their individual games, maybe they're going to force MVP voters into kind of becoming the guy, the face of the MVP of the UFL. Who knows? Maybe they'll split it between the two if they both just continue being great. But particularly, I think Adrian Martinez, we saw him week 3 have a really stellar start and full game. If he does that a couple more times, he may find himself here up at the top of the MVP leaderboard.
Yeah, week in and week out, if we saw what we did from Adrian Martinez in week 3, I think it would be a no-brainer. I mean,
For sure.
He was stellar, but you can't turn your nose up at what Matt Corral came in and did this week either. He went over 200 passing, found the end zone, and you know, like you said though, this is the point where the league decides to co-MVP or something along those lines. I think if they were to do it, splitting it among guys on the same team would be the ideal way to do it. So who knows? But another guy to throw in the ring, throw his name in the ring, I should say, is Jordan Teamu, quarterback for the Defenders, the DC Defenders. I mean, what is there to say about him? He's just doing what we know of him and what we've expected him to do. Obviously, they got off to a little bit of a rough start, sitting at 2-2 right now. But I mean, the guy is just a stud when he's playing football and he's playing at a high level. So,
not to say that this past week didn't matter for him, but I think after with the week 3 game, he kind of came out and said, all right, I'm starting to feel myself starting to kind of get in the rhythm of things and kind of feel like I can make these plays that I wasn't the first 2 weeks. And then he kind of had a rainy game week 4. So it kind of feels like it kind of took that away from him. So if he kind of gets back into that rhythm, back in that groove, we might see a Teamu that might be able to elevate this game and this Defenders team overall. And then another guy, I guess just staying on the trend of starting quarterbacks and just kind of consistent starting quarterbacks. Luis Perez of the Renegades. The team may be 0-4. If they turn it around and just completely dominate rest of the season, I think Perez has a case here just being a really good passer, leading the league in passing yards, probably because they're falling behind in all of these games. But I think, who knows, if they turn it around, he may have a case here. But I think we've got a clear cut, as of right now, midseason MVP leader. We kind of touched on all 4 of his receiving options, and that is A.J. McCarron of the Battlehawks. If you have probably the best receiving core that spring football has ever seen, I think it kind of just allows you to just tiptoe right into the MVP talk and right at the top of the MVP leaderboard. I keep calling it a leaderboard. Not sure why. But I think A.J. McCarron just kind of leads this spot currently, especially now that they're on a 3-game win streak. This team looks hot. They are just an offensive powerhouse currently, and they show no signs of stopping. The fact that they are killing it in the air and then are able to just have sailors dominate on the ground as well.
Yeah.
This offense is grooving, and I think A.J. McCarron is a large part of that.
I don't really have much more to add on top of that. He leads in passing touchdowns. He has 1 on the ground. It's clear that he's falling right into his comfort zone. You kind of mentioned with Teamu, it's the same thing. It's got to be hard coming back into the league and feeling rusty. Think about in the first few weeks of fantasy football every season. There's the guys that you expect to kill it are struggling a little bit, and then they kind of shape into form. And that's sort of what we're seeing here with A.J. McCarron. They're on a 3-game win streak, no signs of slowing down. They're putting up points left and right, and they got the ground attack, they got the passing attack. It's hard to see them kind of slowing down. And typically, like we said, it goes to a leader of a successful team, and I think A.J. McCarron checks all those boxes.
Absolutely. So congrats, A.J. McCarron. You are our midseason MVP. Give yourself a round of applause.
Yeah.
All right, Zach. Let's talk week 5. Quickly make some game picks. If you're new to this segment or tune out typically around this time, what we do is we just run through week 5 games real quick. Just look at the DraftKings Sportsbook lines, mostly as just all right, what do I guess the algorithm see these games looking like this weekend? And we just make our picks. This isn't betting advice. This is us just saying like, oh, the spread's looking like this. I give the Brahmas a little bit more points. I think they've got the will in them to cover the spread and go over. So think of it less betting advice and more, I think this is how the game goes compared to what the sports books are telling me. So, game 1 this weekend. We've got another doubleheader Saturday at 7 p.m. But game 1 that we're talking about, San Antonio Brahmas at 3-1 take on the 0-4 Arlington Renegades Saturday at 7 p.m. Current lines are Brahmas -1.5. Over-under set to 42.5. Closer than I would have expected them to have it here. But Zach, let's hear what you've got it at.
Yeah, I'm very much in the same mindset. I think that this is closer than it probably should be. So I'm going to take the Brahmas -1.5. I think we clearly have not seen the Renegades figure it out yet. So I'm going to go ahead and say that the Brahmas continue rolling and the Renegades continue rolling the wrong way.
No.
And I think I'm going to go ahead and take the over in this game. I think that both of these teams are capable of putting up points. They both have very capable offenses, and we saw that Jontre Kirkland helps this Brahmas offense out a ton. Luis Perez can lead this Renegades offense. So I think they're going to score, but I like the Brahmas to pull away in this one and end up on top.
Zach, I've got nothing else to add on either of those. I'm following both. I think San Antonio comes away with a victory here. I think Arlington does keep it close. I think their offense is solid enough to keep it close, but I think the Brahmas are just... I don't think the Brahmas are going to lose this one, essentially. And then I'm with you on the over. 42.5 feels like a solid line for two very capable offenses.
Absolutely. All right, our next game, also at 7 p.m. I kind of like this. We got the 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday. I wasn't a fan of the 3-1 with 2 at the same time. I didn't love that format. I prefer to be able to get 2 and 2, split my weekend up nicely.
I love it.
But our second of the Saturday games, also at 7 p.m., the Birmingham Stallions are taking on the Houston Roughnecks in a battle of the USFL attic and the USFL basement. The Stallions are currently 7.5 point favorites. They are at -7.5, and the over/under is set also at 42.5. So, who do you like, Kyle?
Give me Birmingham -7.5. I feel like this is just going to be a steamrolling game from the Stallions. Yeah, I see them winning by 10. This is just I don't see the Roughnecks putting up too much or that much of a fight. But give me the under. I don't know, something about the Stallions defense and maybe this Roughnecks offense kind of probably just really having a heavy clash. Yeah, I've got the under 42.5.
Kyle, this is we're starting to think too similarly here. I'm also gonna go Stallions -7.5, and I'm gonna go under 42.5. I hate to be chalk with you, but I mean, the Roughnecks have only put up 20 points once this season. They put up 9 in a game. They put up 12 in a game. They put up 18 in a game. They're not scoring points. And I think that Birmingham does score a ton of points, but I don't think that, I think it's going to be, they're going to hold the Roughnecks so low that the under is going to hit. So that's where I'm thinking.
I especially think if this is an Adrian Martinez week, I think that's the Stallions 10.5 easily.
Agreed.
Next game, Sunday at noon. Good little early Sunday action here. We've got the Battlehawks at 3-1 taking on the Defenders at 2-2. Something to note here is that DC is back at home. They have probably the second best home field advantage here outside of the Battlehawks. And these two teams do not like each other. They were kind of huge rivals last year in the XFL. So, without further ado, the Battlehawks are favored to win this one with the spread of -3. Over/under set at 47. Zach, what you got?
I'm gonna get cute on this game here, and I'm gonna take the Defenders +3. I think that the home field advantage is a really big deal. We talked about Teamu kind of coming into his own. I do love AJ McCarron. I do love the Battlehawks. I love the way they play. That receiving core is awesome. But I think that DC is going to be able to keep this one close. And even if they do lose, keep it a 2 1-point game, something like that. So where the +3 would help and would switch the outcome of the game. As for the over-under, I'm going to keep this one under. I think we're going to see a defensive battle between these two here. I think a lot of people expect to see some offensive fireworks, but I think we're going to see a pretty low-scoring affair. Tight, but low-scoring.
Well, Zach, we've got a double opposite here.
Oh.
I think this Battlehawks team is thriving. Not to say the defenders aren't thriving. Defenders almost had a victory against the 4-0 Stallions. So the defenders can put up a fight, but I think the Battlehawks are just putting up that much better of a fight, especially offensively. So give me the Battlehawks -3. And because I think this is just going to be a shootout, think with me. Battlehawks are averaging 30 the past 3 weeks. You give them 30 this week. I think DC can score 18 to give it the over. Come on. At least 18. But I see this being a 30-point matchup on both sides, honestly. So give me the over 47.
Beautiful. And then our last matchup of the week is a USFL exclusive matchup between the Michigan Panthers and the Memphis Showboats. The Panthers are, the Showboats are currently the 2-point favorites. They're -2. The Panthers are obviously +2. And the over-under is the lowest over-under of the week, and it's set at 40.5 points right now. So,
Yuck.
What do you like, Kyle, other than offense in this game? What do you like?
Well, first off, I do want to mention all of these games are, I guess, division only. They're divisional matchups.
Yes, they are. They are. They're interdivision. Yep.
Surprised we didn't notice that earlier. Good for us. Trying to support the people and their knowledge of the UFL. We can't even come up with that. Sorry, guys.
We're slacking.
But give me Michigan Panthers +2. Come on. I feel like that's one of the easier picks. I feel like the Michigan Panthers are just a better team than this Showboats team. But also give me the under. This is a gross under 40-point game. It's not looking pretty. These offenses aren't great, but I also think the potential injury that we're slowly getting news on about EJ Perry doesn't bode well for points in this game. So give me Panthers +2, under 40.5.
Yeah, this one's probably not going to be a very pretty game, and obviously the line is kind of representing that right now, as we discussed. I'm also going to go with you on this one, though, Kyle. I'm going to go Panthers +2. I love that defense. I think that they're a really special defense. But you know what? I think that the over-under is pretty low, and this one at 40.5 points. Now, crazier things have happened, and I mean, we've seen some ugly things from these teams. Last week, see, I'm talking myself out of it now as I go here. No, you know what? I'll take the over. I'll be different.
Yeah.
I'll take the over. This will be our third different pick, so hopefully this will tie break anything that we got going on here. Danny Etling came in last week for the Panthers after Perry went down. He did find the end zone. He went 11 of 14. Not disgusting, but I do think they'll miss that rushing from EJ Perry. Who knows? Really, who knows? I'm just betting on this game surprising us a little bit, and I'll take the over 40.5.
We need a good Sunday surprise. So give us some points, Panthers and Showboats. Would love to see it. As would everybody else.
Yeah, right? Here's to hoping.
All right. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. It was a pleasure. As always, we are UFL Weekly. Again, follow us. Comment your surprises of that at the halfway point. And again, thank you for tuning in. Means a lot. And we will talk to you next week.
See ya.